Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to Zilla Cabs. Right, this video was recommended to us by John at Celestion, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's something that maybe we should look into. We've got two speakers here to compare. Two speakers that I love from Celestion's range, but hadn't necessarily thought before how similar they might actually be.
Yeah.
So these are both 65 watt Celestions. We've got a G12M-65 Creamback here and a G12-65 there from the Heritage series. And I think you're the same as me. In my mind, like, these are both great Celestion speakers, but not ones that I realise share so much in common.
No, and they're not ones that I would normally immediately recommend for the same kind of job.
Yeah, right.
Where they've come from is they're essentially, or the idea behind them was that they would be higher powered Greenback replacements. So they're going to sound different tonally, but that's the idea of where they came from. That's where it is. So as amps started getting more higher powered, this is the older of the two. This is the Heritage series, but traditionally the G12-65 would have come out in, I'm going to take a stab here and say about 1980.
So I think, just to cut in there, like we say about speakers being developed as higher powered versions of the old Greenbacks.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the intention with most of Celestion speakers up until maybe the 90s, where they started to try and change for tonal reasons.
Yeah, that is quite right. I think it's not, when you say higher powered Greenback, there's a big caveat in there that it's not going to be the same. It's not like, I think some companies that have their version of the Greenback will say this is the 50 watt Greenback, or our version of that, when it's kind of bull, because it is a different speaker. But that's what their job was to do, almost replace or provide an alternative for that, which is high power but without stepping too far away tonally.
As materials and technology gets more advanced, and the capabilities there to make these higher powered speakers.
Yeah, I mean, the first amps I saw these in would be, I think they used them in the JMP combos, the 50 watt,
right,
which would have had
1x12s or the
2x12s,
right,
which I suppose there wasn't any need for, but I guess Marshall maybe at that point just swapped over to those speakers.
So with these being designed initially as updates to the Greenback, I think by this point now these have got their own classic sort of voice that people know and love, haven't they?
Yeah, and I would say it's probably not all that Greenback-esque.
No.
I mean, what we would see now is nice kind of vintage tones, but if you put them side by side, I think they're kind of different.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about the G12-65 from the Heritage series. So I've got here the G12M-65 watt Creamback.
Yeah.
Now, the Creamback originally was a Greenback, right?
Yeah, it would a Greenback where they just changed the pigment in the plastic on the little plastic cover there.
Yeah.
So it is just essentially a Greenback. They've used green, cream. I've heard they've used grey. I've never owned one, and black. Now there's slight differences between them, but it's more like technical changes or availability of parts rather than a speaker in its entirety.
So I think what was it, last decade, Celestion brought back the Creamback as a range into itself.
Yeah, so it's not really bringing it back. It is like they wanted a high-powered Greenback. For some reason, the Lynchback at the time didn't seem to do very well, even though everyone seems to want to buy it now that they don't make it anymore. Basically just a high-powered Greenback, which was a real smart move at the time, because a lot of people were moving from 4x12s to 2x12s, and some straight down to 1x12s. And now, even though amps were getting quite popular to have lower powered speakers, even still a lot of guys had 100 watt heads around and 50 watt heads and stuff, and they just didn't want to have to use a 4x12, which would be 100 watts with a traditional Greenback.
Yeah. Right, so these two speakers then sharing very similar specs, both 65 watts, both 97 dB, is it? Sensitivity?
Yeah, so the same effective loudness if you plug them into the same amp.
Same M magnet.
Yeah, so the magnet itself, that's under a plastic cover, but if you took it off, it'd look very similar.
You've
got a different, this is on
the chassis.
Covered.
Yeah.
Right, straight away, the dust cap, you can see is different. I mean, the cone's different as well, by the looks of things. What have we got on here? This is the 1777.
11914.
Okay, so different cones on there.
Yeah.
Different dust caps, just a real crude way of saying what the different sizes on the dust caps are. You often get slightly more low end or bass resonance will be less with a larger dust cap, but in this case I don't think that's the case with these speakers, is it?
Well, on the spec sheet, the frequency response of this speaker starts at about 70. Well, they say it's 75 hertz, whereas that one starts at 80. So
it's slightly higher, which kind of makes my point of the larger dust cap being a bit more bassy sound stupid, but there's probably other parts in there that are changing.
And 5 hertz down there, like playing guitar, you're not really need to worry about that too much.
No. You can see it's this kind of a more modern kind of doping around the side of the speaker. It's the kind of quite black, quite bright black, if that's a thing, as opposed to the more. I imagine the older ones of these, we've got quite a few sets. We've done a few videos on that. I can imagine it's more of a dull, the slightly less heavy doping.
So why haven't we thought about these being similar speakers before now? And what?
It's more because I think when you're recommending speakers, you'd be using your ears more than using what a spec sheet says. I think when you deal with a lot of speakers, you quite quickly realise that frequency plots, even though we often show them, and spec sheets don't really mean that much. They're more of a guide to make sure there's no mismatches. You use your ears, and I find these to be more useful for different jobs.
Yeah. That being said, I've heard when listening to like guitarists that I like talk about bits of equipment that they use, I've quite often heard them talking in terms of wattage of a speaker, like I like that cab's got 30 watt Celestions in it. Well, instead of saying what greenbacks they were from what year or whatever. So I'm wondering whether that means that wattage, it's like power handling itself, has a specific sound.
I have a theory that comes from back in the day when there were fewer speakers around, and you would have the 25 watt speaker would be the M Greenback, the 30 watt would be the H, and then as you approach the late 70s or early 80s, whenever this came out, the 65 would have been something quite different, the G12-65, and then if you go further back, when you'd have been lucky enough to pick up like a 60s cab or a pre-67 cab, the 20 watt would have been the M Greenback. So that's kind of maybe that, because now we're spoiled. If you were to say the 65 watt, you'd be like, oh, is this what is this? There's a whole bunch. The Neo Creambacks are 65. So
yeah, it's interesting as well thinking about that lineage that you just described as well, like jumping from 30 watts up to 65. That's like over double, obviously. Such a massive difference. Whereas now we're just so spoiled, like you can go out and get a 300 watt speaker if you want. But right, to show how these compare to each other, what I've done is in that cab there are these two speakers, and just mic'd them both up with SM57s in pretty similar spot as as similar as I could find on the speakers themselves. So the only variables hopefully in the whole chain are the speakers. There's the same amp, the same guitarist, the same model of microphone, same position, and just the two different speakers. So in the edit coming up, I'll be able to flick back and forth between the speakers, and you'll be able to hear the difference side by side. So,
I think that's kind of cool, because then you can hear how each one sounds with the same track, but also both of them together.
Yeah.
Which is...
Yeah. So you've had a quick listen to it. What did you think?
I'm going to put my hands up and say I've never actually had these two speakers in the same camp before. And from listening to the recordings, I actually think that the cab would sound better with two of either, rather than one of each. Yeah. Maybe it'd be quite useful in the studio, but as an overall, to be able to flip between the two speakers. I do prefer the G12-65 for how you were playing it. I think merits of I find that to be have a little, I don't know how to say this without making it sound bad, but a little bit less character.
Right.
Not in a bad way, a little bit less, ever so, to me, slightly darker in, I'm not talking about the low end, I'm talking about the kind of how lively it sounds. The kind of, I know that little bit of something that I can't seem to find the words to express that kind of injects something into the sound.
Right.
I love this speaker for that. I'm pretty biased though, because I never used to get on with this speaker, and over the last 6 to 12 months I'm just absolutely falling in love with it. They're amazing. I think for me, the uses I would use these for, I think straight away open back 2x12s with these. Especially,
that's pretty tried and trusted, isn't it? Like, we've done a fair bit of that, and it all sounds really nice.
I absolutely love that. That doesn't mean for 1 second that they don't sound great in closed back 1x12s or 4x12s or anything like that. And that, the M, I think it sounds great in everything, really.
So for me, these, I would think of these, which is the ironic thing now in retrospect, like coming full circle. I would actually think of these to be for fairly similar jobs. This I think of as a really warm sounding, smooth, I think is the word for this one as well. Like, it's a rolled off top end with a lot of mid range and low mids. Whereas that speaker, I would use it for smooth stuff as well, but it's got more going on in the top end. It's a bit more scooped, I think, and as you say, in open back cabs, I think it works really well. It wouldn't be my first choice for heavier stuff. I think once you start pushing the gain up, some of that top end gets a little bit. Well, it can do that stuff, and maybe that's your thing with that sound. But for me, I think there's other places to go for that sort of thing. But
I think this is now you've said that, I think this is a really interesting speaker to add into the mix in heavier rock, which is kind of what I do or try and do, and I don't think instantly it's a great speaker for that. But I think it's very interesting if you're tweaking about and you find that kind of spot. I think it can really sound great for that.
So maybe that's why, I don't know, these are coming from similar places now in my mind. That I agree with Paul. I don't think the two of them together was a great mix for. If you're choosing a pair of speakers for like a cab like we got here, I don't think these two together would be my first. Well, I wouldn't choose them basically, but either one mixed with something else, or either one as a pair of just that speaker. I think they're really great.
You know, now that I've said that though, you know, the best sounding amp I think we did last year was that.
Two of these was one each.
No, that. Fender combo, the twin, the 70s twin that we split into. I think we put the video back December time.
Oh yeah.
We split it into a head, and the customer went and bought a modern 212. Pretty sure it was open back, and he had two of these in the combo, which we then went and put in the cab, and I thought that sounded absolutely fantastic. And actually, when I was listening to the recordings of this, it had a little kind of twanginess to it that I really liked, like not too in your face, but it just a bit of twang in there, and I thought it was really useful, and you can use it in so many different sounds. But as it goes, I actually really like the M Creamback and Fender twins as well.
Oh right.
So I don't know, mixed up about this.
Yeah. Well, it's a good place to be there, isn't it? We've got two great speaker options available to us here. So I think the best thing now is to hear what they sound like, isn't it? So.
Yeah, I think we both probably just confused this, or at least I've confused the situation. So as always, if you like the videos and like what you are hearing and what we're talking about, don't forget to subscribe. We've got loads of these type videos coming out, including a vintage speaker that actually works. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, give us a like if you like it. If you don't like it, then don't give us a thumbs down. Any experience you've got on these speakers, leave us a comment, let us know what you think, your experiences, and yeah, as always, enjoy the playing.